In this episode, we focus on the part of incident response that most beginners underestimate until the first real crisis hits. Communication that stays accurate, controlled, and useful while facts are still changing. Technical work can be excellent and still fail if people say the wrong thing, say it at the wrong time, or say it to the wrong audience. When an incident unfolds, multiple groups will demand answers, and their needs will conflict because some want speed, some want certainty, and some want protection from legal or reputational harm. Coordinating those demands is not spin or theater. It is risk management through language, timing, and authority. A strong communication approach also protects responders because it prevents random stakeholders from interrupting the team with repeated questions that have no new answers. When communications are disciplined, the organization stays calm enough to make good decisions, and that calm is a real security advantage. Communication in Incident Response, IR, has a simple goal that can be easy to forget under stress. Deliver the right information to the right people in a way that supports correct decisions and reduces unnecessary harm. That goal immediately tells you what bad communication looks like, because bad communication creates confusion, panic, rumor, and irreversible commitments. A common beginner mistake is treating communication as an afterthought, like something you do once you have finished fixing the problem. But the reality is that communication starts the moment you suspect an incident is real. Another mistake is treating communication as constant updates to everyone, which floods the organization with half-formed facts and creates more work correcting misunderstandings later. A disciplined approach focuses on decision-relevant updates, clear confidence levels, and a small number of authorized spokespeople. When the organization can trust the communication process, people stop improvising, and the response becomes more coordinated and more effective. The first step in communication coordination is setting authority boundaries, because without boundaries, anyone with anxiety and a keyboard can cause damage. Authority means knowing who is allowed to speak externally, who is allowed to brief executives, who is allowed to engage regulators or customers, and who is allowed to instruct employees about immediate actions. Beginners sometimes assume the most senior person should communicate everything, but in practice the best approach is role-based, where a communications lead coordinates messaging while technical leads provide facts, and an incident commander ensures alignment. This prevents mixed messages, such as one person saying the issue is contained while another implies it is still spreading. Authority also includes approval pathways, because some messages need legal review while others must go out quickly to protect people and operations. When authority is clear, communication becomes an organized workflow rather than a chaotic chorus. Legal involvement is often misunderstood as a brake that slows response, but in mature incident response it acts as a guardrail that keeps the organization from creating unnecessary legal exposure. Legal teams help determine what obligations exist, such as notification requirements, evidence preservation needs, contractual commitments, and how to communicate without making premature admissions that are not supported by evidence. Beginners sometimes fear legal will block everything, so they avoid engaging them, which can lead to a worse outcome if the organization misses required actions or mishandles sensitive information. A healthier mindset is that legal needs early, structured facts, not dramatic storytelling. They need to know what is confirmed, what systems are involved, what data might be at risk, and what steps are being taken to contain and investigate. When legal is engaged through an established channel with disciplined updates, they can support speed by clearing messages faster and reducing rework from poorly phrased communications. Public relations, PR, is often viewed as reputation protection, but at its best, it is trust protection through clarity, consistency, and empathy. PR helps craft messages that non-technical audiences can understand, and it helps avoid confusing language that makes the organization sound evasive or incompetent. Beginners sometimes think PR is only relevant for major breaches, but smaller incidents can still create public narratives if customers notice service disruptions or if employees discuss issues externally. PR also helps coordinate across channels, such as press statements, customer emails, social posts, and support scripts, so the organization does not contradict itself across platforms. The key leadership concept is that public messaging is part of incident containment in a social sense, because rumors can spread faster than malware. When PR is brought in early with clear boundaries and a commitment to factual accuracy, they can reduce reputational damage without compromising the technical investigation. Executives are not just an audience for incident updates. They are decision-makers who control resources, risk tolerance, and business trade-offs. A disciplined executive update is not a long technical explanation, because executives need a small set of things: what happened in plain terms, what the likely impact is, what decisions are needed right now, and what the next update cadence will be. Beginners often overwhelm executives with detail, which causes confusion and can trigger unhelpful directives like demanding immediate certainty or demanding that services be restored at any cost. A better approach is to present facts and confidence levels, state what is unknown, and explain how the team is reducing uncertainty. Executives also need to know what the business should do immediately, such as pausing a process, restricting access, or preparing customer communications. When executive communications are structured, the response team gets air cover to do the right work, and the organization avoids impulsive decisions that create long-term harm. Affected stakeholders include employees, customers, partners, regulators, and sometimes the public, and each group needs communication designed for their context. Employees may need guidance on recognizing phishing or reporting suspicious activity, and they may need reassurance about what systems are safe to use. Customers may need to know whether their data was involved, what steps they should take, and how the organization will support them, but they also deserve honesty about what is still being investigated. Partners may need operational details to protect their own environments, especially when integrations exist, and contracts may define how quickly they must be notified. Regulators and auditors may require specific kinds of reporting, and the organization must be careful to align statements with evidence. Beginners often try to produce one universal message, but that usually fails because it either becomes too vague to be useful or too detailed for non-technical audiences. Coordinated communication means tailoring without contradicting, and that requires a central message strategy. One of the most useful communication disciplines is separating confirmed facts from hypotheses, because credibility is hard to regain once you lose it. A confirmed fact is something you have evidence for, such as a specific system generating suspicious authentication events or a service outage affecting customers. A hypothesis is a plausible explanation, such as credential theft or malware, that still requires verification. Beginners often speak in hypotheses as if they are facts because they want to sound decisive, but that leads to corrections later, and corrections erode trust. A disciplined approach uses careful language that communicates progress without claiming certainty that does not exist. It is also helpful to include what you are doing to validate hypotheses, because that shows control and competence. When stakeholders hear that the team has a plan to confirm scope and impact, they are less likely to demand immediate answers that no one can give responsibly. Clarity about certainty is one of the most important leadership skills in incident communication. Cadence is another core concept, because communication is not only about what you say, it is about when you say it and how predictable your updates are. Without a cadence, stakeholders will repeatedly interrupt responders for updates, which steals time and increases errors. With a cadence, stakeholders know when to expect new information, and responders can focus between updates. The cadence should match the situation, because a rapidly evolving outage may require more frequent briefings than a contained incident under investigation. Beginners sometimes promise constant updates, but constant updates create pressure to fill space with speculation. A better practice is to commit to a realistic schedule and to provide immediate updates only when a decision point or a significant change occurs, such as a confirmed data exposure or a major containment action. Cadence is also a trust mechanism because it signals that the response is organized and that leadership is in control of the flow of information. Message hygiene matters because incidents create intense pressure to communicate through convenient channels, and convenience can conflict with security and evidence preservation. Responders may be tempted to use personal messaging apps, informal chats, or unsecured email threads, especially when normal systems are disrupted. That can create two problems at once. Sensitive information may leak, and the organization may lose a reliable record of what was decided and when. Leaders should ensure there is an established secure channel for incident communications and that the team practices using it before emergencies. Hygiene also includes access control, because not everyone should be included in every thread, and over-including people increases both leak risk and confusion. Another part of hygiene is avoiding casual language that can be misinterpreted later, especially when messages may be preserved and reviewed. Coordinated communication keeps content controlled, channels appropriate, and records reliable, which supports both response effectiveness and later accountability. Another discipline that separates mature response teams from beginners is avoiding premature conclusions about root cause and extent, especially in written statements that can live forever. It is tempting to say the incident is isolated, fully contained, or limited to a certain dataset, but those phrases can become liabilities if later evidence contradicts them. A safer approach is to describe what containment actions have been taken, what monitoring shows so far, and what investigation steps remain. This still communicates progress without locking the organization into a narrative that may be wrong. It also reduces the risk of underinforming stakeholders, because vague reassurance can lead people to skip protective steps they should take. Leaders should model language that is careful but not evasive, because stakeholders can sense when communication is being manipulated. The goal is steady credibility. State what is known, state what is being done, and state when the next update will arrive. Coordination across legal, PR, and technical teams works best when each group understands what inputs they must provide and what constraints they must respect. Technical teams provide facts, timelines, and assessments of risk and scope, but they should avoid guessing about legal obligations or public messaging tone. Legal teams provide guidance on obligations, privilege considerations, and risk in specific statements, but they should avoid blocking operationally necessary communications that protect customers or employees. PR teams provide clarity, audience-appropriate language, and channel coordination, but they should avoid polishing away uncertainty in ways that create false confidence. Leadership is the glue that keeps these groups aligned by setting a clear objective and ensuring everyone operates from the same set of facts. Beginners often see tension between these groups as political conflict, but in mature organizations the tension is a feature that prevents extreme decisions. Coordinated communication uses that tension productively by turning it into review and balance rather than delay and frustration. It also helps to think of communications as part of containment, because the way you communicate can either reduce harm or increase it. If employees do not know what to do, they may click malicious links, reuse compromised passwords, or spread misinformation that creates panic. If customers receive unclear messages, they may overwhelm support channels, mistrust future updates, or take unsafe actions based on rumors. If partners are not informed appropriately, they may remain exposed through shared integrations or may inadvertently reintroduce risk back into your environment. If executives receive confusing updates, they may demand reckless restoration or public statements that conflict with evidence. Coordinated communication reduces these risks by turning people into part of the defense rather than part of the chaos. That is why clarity and timing matter as much as technical containment actions. A leader treats communication as an operational control with measurable impact, not as a side task that can be handled later. A practical way to maintain trust during an incident is to align every communication to a small, consistent set of themes that remain true even as details evolve. Those themes might include that the organization is investigating, that containment actions have been taken, that affected parties will be informed as facts are confirmed, and that safety and service integrity are priorities. The exact wording will vary by audience, but the underlying commitments should remain stable so that stakeholders do not hear a different story each day. Beginners often change language dramatically between updates because new responders join or because emotions shift, and that creates the appearance of confusion even when the response is progressing well. Consistency does not mean repeating the same paragraph. It means keeping the narrative coherent and evidence-based. Leaders also protect trust by acknowledging uncertainty plainly, because stakeholders generally tolerate uncertainty better than they tolerate correction of overconfident claims. Stability in messaging is a sign of leadership maturity. When you put all of this together, coordinating communications during incident response becomes a disciplined system that protects both outcomes and credibility. Legal ensures obligations and statements are defensible, PR ensures messages are understandable and consistent across channels. Executives receive decision-ready updates that support resource and risk choices, and affected stakeholders receive guidance that helps them protect themselves and maintain trust. The system works when authority is clear, cadence is predictable, facts are separated from hypotheses, channels are secure, and statements avoid premature certainty. Beginners often think communication is about sounding confident, but the better goal is sounding accurate and controlled, because accuracy is what creates confidence over time. Coordinated communication also reduces responder stress because it keeps inquiries organized and prevents constant interruptions. A leader who can manage this communication life cycle turns a messy incident into an event the organization can navigate without losing trust, which is one of the most important measures of real security leadership.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.